The OMI utility program is here and feedback has been rolling in. Some people think it's good, some people think it's bad, and some believe it's destined to fail. In this video, I go over all of the major concerns that I've seen related to the OMI utility program and how I believe that VeVe will overcome each and every one of them. Stay tuned, let's break it down. Thank you for tuning in, guys. It's Foster, and I'm back at it again with another VeVe Andy Comey video. The first part of the OMI utility program that I'd like to review is the OMI to Gem section. Now, the OMI to Gem section basically dictates the OMI to Gem pool, which is basically a pool of money that has been preceded by Ecomi with 1 million US dollars. But this pool will allow you to take your OMI tokens and directly convert them into gems, which is the in-app currency within the VeVe app. And you'll actually be able to get discounts depending on your staking tier within the staking program that will allow you to actually purchase these gems for less than 1-to-1, which will be a great incentive for people to be able to load up on gems to purchase items in the primary market or purchase things in the secondary market for items that they see that are not listed in OMI tokens. One of the concerns that I've found with the OMI to Gem pool that have been brought up is that it's going to be difficult to replenish and that it's always going to be sold out. And I do have to say that at first glance, with the mechanics that currently exist, I do agree with this fact. At the beginning, we will have that $1 million reserve, but I do anticipate that we will go through it fairly quickly. And actually, just as a fun fact, we will actually burn 1 billion OMI tokens based on the current price of OMI if that pool was to go live today based on the cost of OMI. So that's pretty cool to see that they've burnt 5.6 billion tokens out of the business development fund. And then we would burn another 1 billion tokens just from this 1 million US dollars that they've added. The OMI to Gem pool is primarily funded from crypto to gem, which is taking cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, etc., and bringing that into the VeVe app to purchase gems. There is a market maker fee as well as a transaction fee that is charged to you by the provider, and that is then rolled into the gem pool. And that amount that you charged for the fee, let's say you want to bring $1,000 in, that $30 fee, a percentage of that $30 is then added into gems and is provided into the OMI to Gem pool, which then people like you and I can go in and purchase these gems for those discounted rates so that we can have them on the platform. But of course, if let's say $1 million is added into the platform via crypto to gem, there's only going to be about $30,000 worth of gems that are actually added to the crypto to gem pool. So we see that it's only being refilled at a 3% rate. So even if we wanted to get back up to that $1 million that's in there right now, we would need to have $30 million plus just in buy pressure to have that number come back up to $1 million. So what Ecomi has done is they've instituted a limit as to how much you can purchase from the gem pool, which people feel is a little bit discouraging that they can't load up on all of it. But that's in place to ensure that as many people can start to enjoy the features as possible until they add in other mechanisms, which I will be touching on in this video. One of the other ways that it's filled and it's supplemented is through OMI to NFT. So the percentage of buyer's fees that's added, or sorry, seller's fees that is added, as well as OUP ticket trading for bronze, silver, and gold tickets. When you're transacting peer-to-peer in the market, there is a fee associated with that, as well as OUP accessories trading. When that does come in, there will be a fee associated with that as well. So will this pool ever be 100% replenished solely from this activity? Likely not. But once again, similarly to how the Master Collector program is meant to complement your collecting journey and not be the actual reason for collecting itself, the OMI to Gem function is just simply meant to provide you with a option or utility in order to load up with gems using your OMI tokens. One example or one option that may be available to you that you can explore is to convert your OMI tokens into another cryptocurrency, such as the Bitcoin, Ethereum, or USDC, and utilize the crypto to gem. Now, this, of course, would cost a couple of percentage points extra if the pool is not currently available to you. However, it still is an option that allows you to add liquidity onto the platform, and it is something that I do anticipate a lot of people exploring when the pool has been completely wiped out. Now, one of the proposals that I've seen floating around when it comes to the OMI to Gem pool is taking VeVe revenue, the 2.5% fee that they take in the secondary market, as well as a percentage of fees in the primary market, and pass that along to the Gem pool by taking a percentage of revenue to offset that. The biggest concern about VeVe doing something like this is the reason that the entire original buyback model became invalidated, and that's the concern of VeVe or Ecomi being classified as a security by taking their own revenue and doing buybacks with it. This is the one reason that we're not seeing buybacks taking place now, and this was something that was explained in the AMA. But to reiterate that, that is why we will not see that initial 2.5%, because it's revenue that VeVe is receiving, and then they would be taking it from their own revenue and buying back or burning the tokens, which of course is a no-no right now. Especially with regulatory compliance, they want to make sure that they take all of the steps that they can in order to be careful. So that is not something that I see coming in. One of the other solutions that I've seen proposed is having additional fees added on that users can receive in the primary or secondary market, and those fees being passed along to the gem pool. So as an example, right now the VeVe fee is 2.5%, and you only get charged buyers and sellers fees if you're using the OMI token. But what could conceivably happen is that you could, in every gem purchase, have an additional fee added that is not taken by VeVe or Ecomi and is directly put into the crypto to gem pool, which would replenish it and would possibly be really good for the ecosystem. So I ran a poll on my Twitter because I had a feeling I already knew what the answer would be, but it was proposed as a solution. So I wanted to throw it out to the community to see what they would think. So I ran the poll, letting people know that the OMI to Gem pool would likely always be sold out. And I explained the easiest way that it could likely be replenished, which was to charge an additional percentage fee to every transaction that takes place on the platform. A service fee, whatever you want to call it, but it would be done directly by the user. Therefore, it would negate any securities concerns. And I asked, if you were to pay more fees, how much more would you be willing to pay? And we can see here that the poll got approximately 664 votes, and over 50% of people said that they don't want any extra fees. And the second highest category would be up to 1%. So it seems like the vast majority of people, 3 out of every 4 people, have no interest in having any additional fees, or if there are going to be additional fees, very little fees added to the platform. And I tend to agree with this. I think people want OMI to be successful, myself included, but I don't know that we're necessarily in a position at this juncture to impose additional fees onto everyone else who are not already familiar with the OMI token and the platform. I think that there is room eventually for this fee to be added or something similar to it once OMI becomes very synonymous in the platform, because once that happens, people will want to be using the OMI tokens because the additional benefits that it affords them, whether it be through staking and getting early access to certain things or getting exclusive collectibles or just a bunch of other options, people will want to use the OMI token regardless. We will have OMI available to be purchased on the web app, so this will be something that people will take advantage of as well. And once OMI is very easily accessible, it's on major exchanges, I could see a justification for adding in additional fees because, once again, you're just further incentivizing people to be utilizing the OMI token, which would be easily accessible to them on the platform. I think right now, similarly to how VeVe was not passing on the 30% App Store fees when you were purchasing gems on the mobile platforms, once the VeVe web app becomes kind of the main place that people go to interact on VeVe on a regular basis, I see VeVe passing on those 30% fees on the mobile stores because it's not a cost that they need to incur, but without the convenience of having it there for their users now, it does make sense for them to be eating it as a cost. Similarly, it makes sense for us to not be adding on additional fees to gem users when they have no other option available to them at this time. But as time goes on and that does become available, I very much look forward to exploring how an option like this may actually make it a lot easier to add additional fees and replenish the OMI to gem pool. The second major concern that I have found people have given with the OMI utility program is in the section for OMI to NFT. And this is something that I actually identified in my first video breaking down the OMI utility program, if you were able to watch that when it came out. And that is needing to lock up gems in order to list a collectible in OMI tokens. And to be honest with you guys, this is probably the biggest issue that I have found so far with the program. And it is something that I do believe solutions will come for. And they've actually already referenced some of the solutions that they may be working on in this article, but we'll get into that shortly. Why is this an issue? In order to list collectibles for sale in OMI tokens, here is what is going to happen. You're going to have a collectible that's, let's say, is valued at $1,000 or 1,000 gems in this case. You will list it for sale for $1,000, but you're requesting OMI tokens as the purchasing value for that $1,000. The reason that you cannot have your collectibles listed directly in OMI tokens right now is that the OMI token is far too volatile and it would be very difficult, and a lot of people would end up getting very hurt by this mechanic, because what would happen is OMI would fluctuate, let's say 20%, and someone would put something up for 1,000,000 OMI tokens, and 1,000,000 OMI tokens may be worth $1,000 at one point, but then if OMI token goes down 20%, it just fluctuates far too often. Even minute by minute it fluctuates. So this needs to be calculated in real time when someone commits to the purchase of an item. So that is the reason that you're listing it in a fixed amount. And the other reason that you're listing it in a fixed amount is that they need to know how many gems you're going to be locking up once you list that collectible for sale. Now, for those of you that don't understand why you need to lock up gems when you're completing a sale, it's to cover and offset the fees that are being incurred to VeVe, the 2.5% fee, as well as the licensor fee. We'll use Disney as an example. They are 6%. So in our scenario, where we're listing something for $1,000 worth of OMI, we would need to make sure that $25 was set aside for VeVe and $60 was set aside for Disney. If we list it for sale in OMI tokens and do not lock up any gems beforehand, and the entire sales amount was to take place in OMI tokens, then what inevitably happens is once that transaction is completed, eComi or a market maker now needs to go out and sell down the OMI tokens that were just used to transact as a percentage in order to pay off Disney and pay off VeVe. Because VeVe maybe wants your OMI tokens, but I can assure you that Disney and other licensors, they want fiat. They want real dollars that they can put into their bank account. OMI tokens do not do them any good. So the issue that we run into with this mechanism in place is that for every transaction that takes place, we're now putting sell pressure on the OMI token, which of course, with a trading volume that we have right now of less than $500,000 a day, that is absolutely the last thing that we would want to see happen. And I'll give you guys the extrapolated example of why this is the case. Let's say we have $500,000 in transactions that take place on the VeVe app in a day through the OMI token. We then need to take approximately 8.5% of that transaction of the $500,000, and we need to sell it down in OMI tokens. So we're now selling down approximately $42,500 worth of OMI in order just to cover those market fees, which becomes a problem when you only have a 24-hour trading volume of 250,000 to 500,000, because now 10% of all of the volume that takes place in a day is pure sell pressure. So this ends up hurting the token value, and it just ends up going down further, and it compounds the issue as more sales take place. So it's not something that I believe that they can implement right now, but what is the solution for this? Well, one of the solutions that they have for this is being able to have the liquidity at a later time in order to solve this issue. And what that would look like is being listed on major exchanges or having more 24-hour trading volume. As a perfect example of this, most major tokens that are listed in the top 100 coins have 9-figure trading volumes or higher on a 24-hour basis. What that means is that they trade at least $100 million in volume in a 24-hour period. Why I would want to see a number like this is because it would put a nominal amount of sell pressure on the token to be able to facilitate all transactions directly in OMI. So if we had a model where we were only selling the tokens down for OMI, all the transactions were listed directly in OMI, and all of the sales fees were derived from OMI token sales directly. Even if we had $1 million in sales on the app a day, and we had to sell down $80,000 a day to offset that, what would end up happening is with $100 million in trading volume, that would represent less than 1/10 of 1% of that entire trading volume, and that would no longer become an issue. And I think that Comey recognizes this because they mention here at the end of the article that the system will be under constant review, and over time we hope to remove some of these barriers to use as new opportunities become available, because they recognize how much of an issue it is. And so that people understand at the beginning, a lot of people will not probably be using OMI to NFT for day-to-day transactions. And what I mean by that is, if I want to sell a walt right now, I need to lock up $500 worth of gems if I want to list the collectible at $5,000. If I don't have 500 gems, I need to either go out and acquire those gems from the OMI to gem pool, I need to sell another collectible for those gems, or I need to add money into the platform to ensure that I have those gems just so that I can list the collectible, and that doesn't even guarantee its sale. So I do believe that right now, this is somewhat of a barrier for a lot of people for larger transactions. Now, it's worth recognizing that for that $5,000 walt right now, the only way that it sells is that someone has 5,000 gems on their account in order to do that. And so I don't necessarily look at it as a huge barrier, because people that have gems already have gems, and people that don't have gems probably also don't have the collectibles that they're listing at those prices that require those gem amounts. But of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and there will be people that will not be able to list via OMI to NFT because they do not have the gem liquidity. There are some solutions to this as well that have been proposed on the OUP wish list, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later in the video, because I want to show you guys that a lot of the concerns that have actually been brought up have been identified and actually dealt with and referenced in this article the entire time. But I'm just giving you guys some examples as to some of the issues or shortcomings that the program may have from an outsider perspective, and how are some of the ways that we may be able to overcome it. The last major concern that I've seen people reference in the OMI utility program is the development roadmap, which is somewhat ironic because I recognize that for the last 2 years, we haven't had a roadmap and no one has had any idea of where we sit when it comes to producing certain features on the platform. So it is somewhat ironic that we finally do have this roadmap for the first time, and people initially view it and don't even bother really reading it and just look at it and go, all of it is only 10% done. So this must mean that none of these features are going to roll out in the next 2 years, which I believe is absolutely the furthest from the truth. We see here crypto to gem only shows as being about 60% done, but all signs point to it being completed by the end of November, and we're currently almost halfway through November right now. So we will see if Ecomi is able to deliver on that crypto to gem payout timeline, and if that does come, then it goes to show that something only being 10% done really has no real bearing or indication as to where we are. Looking at the OMI development path and how it's all generated, I did want to point something out that I noticed when it came to looking at the requirements for each of these items to be completed. And something that I noticed, and something that you'll see as a theme in the development roadmap, is that when it comes to development, sometimes it only takes 1 or 2 pieces of tech or back-end development in order to complete a bunch of these features at once. And I think the best way to hammer this point home is if you look at the OMI to NFT, the OMI to gem, and the OUP tickets, you notice that the first thing that is required for all of it is the layer 2 spot wallet. Now, the layer 2 spot wallet is something that is going to be created by the company that will almost act like a normal crypto exchange will act, but it will allow you to interact with your OMI tokens on layer 2, which will allow you to take them from, let's say, a cold wallet that you just are using to store your tokens. It will allow you to put them in a wallet to stake your OMI tokens. It will allow you to put them in a wallet to transact on the market with your tokens, and so on and so forth. So we recognize as we look at this development priority roadmap that a lot of these things require the same features in order to be completed. We see even with OUP staking, it's the layer 2 staking wallet. So a lot of these code and things that need to be generated, we recognize that for a lot of these that look at 10%, once that one feature is created, all of these could jump up to being 70, 80, or even 90% complete. So that's the one thing that I kind of wanted to point out to people is, a lot of people look at this and say, hey, we're not going to get this for at least the next 2 years. But if you actually listen to what the team has been saying, and Reese has actually mentioned in the Comey Telegram during an AMA last week that, he's very hopeful that all of these will roll out within the next 9 to 12 months. Now, of course, with development roadmaps and timeframes, we always do have to take that with a grain of salt. Historically, VeVe and Comey have not been the greatest at providing timeframes. I can definitely acknowledge that. However, I do believe recently the people that they've onboarded into the company, and the way that they go about providing information has drastically improved the way that they deliver on things. We saw that KYC and MTL was delivered on in the time frame that was provided. We saw the OMI utility program article come out when it was scheduled to come out. If we see the VeVeVerse demo in next week and we see the crypto to gem functionality come out by the end of November, we're really going to start to see them hit their deliverables on timelines. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt on 9 to 12 months for all of these features to be implemented. But even if it's only half of them or most of them, I still think that it gives us a great foundation for OMI utility that did not exist previously. And it's still something to be very excited about. The very last thing that I want to cover in this video is the OUP wish list and proposal. And I have to be honest, I was guilty of actually not reading this the first time that I went through the OMI utility program. And then I started asking questions to people that I realized that the answers already existed. So I took that one on the chin, but this is something that I think is important to share with all of you to give some perspective and context into some of the things that they're considering, some of the things that I've already touched on in this video, and how some of these issues may be negated moving forward. So when we look at the open items and ideas, and once again, these are in no particular order, they reference MCP bonuses for staking tiers, which I think is cool once the Master Collector program rolls out. Premium market listings in OMI is something that they're throwing around, which I think is a great idea. Tiered accessories, I think, is a great idea as well. Bronze ticket purchasing with gems is also a great idea because that would help replenish the gem pool. So once again, looking for other creative ways to replenish the gem pool so that we can put some buy pressure into the gem pool, which once again, any gems that are purchased in the gem pool burn 100% of the equivalent OMI that are used to purchase them. So I think that that's fantastic. One of the other mechanisms that they're looking to implement is a payout partial fee going to the OMI to gem pool. So this could look at gem to crypto, gem to cash, or both. And it would possibly be 1 to 2% of payout fees going to the OMI to gem pool. So what could happen is if the payout fee is, let's say, lowered from 10% to 5%, of that 5% payout fee, 1 to 2% could be used to take gems directly to the OMI to gem pool. That way, you're not just basically disregarding all OMI utility in the app and making it so that people only want to use gems, but you're also not disenfranchising people who are using gems in the platform, allowing them to take off their money with not spending as much in fees, but you're also benefiting the ecosystem as a whole. And it's kind of that fee that I was referencing in here where people probably won't notice it because it's a percentage of the fee that they were paying anyways. So I really do think that it'll be beneficial for the ecosystem. They're also looking at possible staking perks, different staking perks, whitelist spots, exclusive AMAs with the team, and things like that. And then some of the other things that they're looking to implement to solve some of these issues that we've identified with OMI to Gem and OMI to NFT is OMI to Gem peer-to-peer trading. So you could actually look at a situation in which you could take your gems, if you have an excess of gems, someone has a bunch of OMI, and you would basically enter into a trade rather than needing to sell your OMI on an exchange or cash out of your gems into fiat in order to onboard into crypto, and you could actually just exchange with one another those directly. Now, of course, this would probably also have to have a fee associated with it. It could also reduce the demand to the OMI to gem pool. So I don't know that it's something that they're going to implement because I also do think that this would be wrought with fraudulent activity because if people are able to fraudulent KYC, they could add funds via a fraudulent credit card in gems and then offboard with themselves in OMI. And it could become somewhat of a disastrous situation. So they do reference it with compliance issues with AML, anti-money laundering, but it is something that they're exploring. And I think that this is what the important thing is, right? They're looking at OMI open bids on store NFTs. So you could look at, possibly being one of the 10 top OMI bidders. You get a guaranteed collectible allocation, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Even boosted burn reward points, which would incentivize you to use OMI on the platform because you would be earning double the value for that time window, kind of like a double XP event that you see in video games, and the usage goes entirely up. So, I really do think that they're on the right path with a lot of these concerns that the community has identified. I hope that I've been able to clarify some of the concerns that may have been brought forward and how I believe VeVe and OMI are going to overcome those. But if you guys have any feedback, questions, or ideas, remember that you can actually access the form on the Notion and you can actually give your feedback on everything that's happening here. It's great to give it on Twitter or it's great to give it to someone like me, but if you give it to the team directly, they can actually take your considerations and look at implementing them into the platform and look at making this platform the best place that everyone wants to be. Thank you so much for all the support as always, guys. If you have not done so already, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any other content that I will be releasing. As always, I love you all. Peace.